says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you're lusting is the one you're loving?
Let me welcome the great Michael Harriot. Hey.
Thank you for having me again. I'm always so happy to just sit in community with you.
Man, you got an open seat at my table. And tonight we're going to be in Nubia having a listening event around your latest episode of Drapetomania, which comes out tonight. So we're going to be one of the first people to listen to it. And first of all, thank you for reaching out on that, because it's kind of the space I want to create, like a Sundance. I want us to have safe spaces for Black creators to come in and kick the tires on their new, documentaries and movies and TV shows, and let us get the first crack at telling you whether it's good or not, or whether we like it and why, because we're going to do it with love. But I think that that's so incredible that you will be there tonight to have a Q&A with us about it. So tell us a little bit about Drapetomania.
Yeah. So the podcast is based on a actual medical diagnosis from 1851, where this white pro-slavery doctor named Samuel Cartwright said that Black people's desire to freedom is a mental illness, and it can be cured by basically this is where the phrase, even though people know the term drapetomania, it's where the phrase whipping the devil out of somebody came from. So Drapetomaniacs takes that idea, and instead of like kind of centering it on white people and like these crazy ideas, what we do is say, who are the Drapetomaniacs, right? Like so each episode takes a person, almost always like unknown, an aspect that we didn't know about their life, and explores it and sees how that made them a Drapetomaniac. Right. And so this week's episode, which comes out tomorrow, is about how the entire African diaspora came together in 1811 on the German coast of Louisiana. And the documentation and the transcripts that we have left says that they all say they had one goal: to kill whites. So it was a slave revolt where they separated themselves into literal battalions and trained on their own with the plan of, on this day, we're going to come together and here's what the plan is. And it's a fascinating story. It's rarely told this way. And so we do it with humor, and we have celebrities come on. So Yvette Nicole Brown will be... yeah. So this episode is crazy because we have like different ideas of how to tell these stories. So she will be playing a detective in a parody of the first 48, where she has 48 hours to uncover this story, the real story, before it's whitewashed, right? So you got
this is genius.
So
okay,
it's the first 48,
wait.
right?
I cannot wait. Okay.
So that's what this week's episode is about.
First of all, I didn't know about Drapetomania till I started reading Black AF history. I don't know if I've ever run into the word before, and now your podcast, right? So it's crazy to me that there are these things, even laughing in a barrel. I heard, it's like all of the ways in which Blackness was beaten into a certain kind of docility or acceptance of a way of life. And then I just think about, we still, as Amaya would say, and yet we still rise, right? And yet we still resist. We don't ever stop resisting because it's in our DNA. And I just, first of all, I want to say how grateful I am that you're here in this space doing the things that you're doing. But it can only happen because of your background and how your mother and your parents, shaped you with the homeschooling first, and then you coming in with a base of knowledge of yourself. How do we get this for everybody? How does every child, no matter what their hue, because I think every child should have a base of knowledge about not just themselves, but the world around them. How do we get there?
I think like we have to be intentional about it. Like, I don't think that it's what always amazes me is that the intention of my mother, right? Like, she didn't say, Like, I am not the result of a thing she did. I am the result of an idea she had and put it into action, right? She didn't just do it. She dreamed up, like, how can I create a whole human being? And it was almost like an experiment, right? Like, instead, like when she had to work at night, she would record herself on a tape recorder reading us books. And because not just to I listen to stories, but to, like, I later learned that that is how you put ideas. That's a effective way of putting ideas into people's heads, right? Like, to the last thing they think of when they go to sleep, or what they're thinking of as they fall asleep. Now, I don't know if she knew that, but she was so intentional about what she wanted us to become, not just like how I want to raise them and how I want them to be now. But when they are finished, when they are no longer in my sight or under my control, this is what I want them to be. And I think that's what we have to do as people, whether it is our children or the world or our communities, not just what do we want to change, but what do we want the world around us, the community around us, the neighborhood around us, and the people around us to be. And I think that is the way that's where you start.
And I feel like that sounds radical, but it isn't. It's something, and I look around and it's like, why isn't everyone doing it? It's a very simple thing, to be intentional, but it also takes time because, you have to wait 10, 15, 20 years to see your seed come to fruition. You have to see the seed of your idea actually manifest. That takes a minute, right? Most of us don't have time. I was having a conversation today about media and how we have devolved everything into these bite-sized, get rich quick, for the algorithms, for the check, for the this, for the that, as opposed to being intentional even about the media that we produce, whether we're talking cable news or even that has to have kind of a 10-year vision. Like, what are we saying today that will reverberate beyond this moment? How are we producing things? And there should be an intentionality about that, but everything's about the clicks and the algorithms. How can we make more money? How can we make more money? How can we make more money? Instead of how can we make better humans? How can we make better humans?
Right.
How?
And it's interesting that we have more information and we want to give people less information, like in bite-sized digestible bites, when we have more information, right? Like, we should be like, when I see a mainstream media and it's 5 minutes, you're talking about an issue for 5 minutes and you have 4 people on. Like, how can they have a conversation about this complex issue, right? With in that short of a span of time, you can't make them understand the issue, right? You can go tell them to read this or to here are some bullet points, and then you have to instruct them on where to find the information. And if you aren't doing that, like, I don't understand how you're leading people to more understanding.
They're not. They're leading people to be outraged or feel something so that they can stay there longer, so that they can make money. Period. That's the whole goal. So I've been intentional. I'm grateful for these 3 hours I get every Monday through Friday because I want to have real conversations, which is why it's interesting when I watch people only watch the clips on YouTube. Like, you can get something from it, but you're not getting what the intention is. You might can feel something, but you're not getting the fullness, especially if you haven't been watching this for a while or seeing the story arc develop, from 2014 to now, because I have evolved as a person, but also this platform has evolved, and so I'm 100% in agreement. And as I'm thinking about Black AF history, which comes out January. When's it come out? In January?
No, September 18th, right? Like,
okay, that's right. So you'll be back.
Now.
You're gonna be back because I got to finish reading it too. My time, but I'm definitely gonna finish it. But the first few pages, first chapter, I was like, this guy is. First of all, you're writing. You could write your behind off. That just move the way you storied. I was like sitting there. I was in class with you, going through this book, taking notes, like, oh, I love how he turned this phrase and injected the humor and then told this story and brought it to life. And it was just masterful. Great job, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I
So what
think
do we do? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I think the book is like there are a lot of books and a lot of scholars that contextualize what it is to be Black in America. But one of the things I did that, I think I tried to do that in over a broad view, right? And say, go here to learn more. But one of the things I wanted to do was to write a book about America from Black people's perspective. So not about Black people, but the story of America that hasn't been told is the story of how we view America, right? Like we talk about ourselves, but we don't really talk about this country and what we know about this country, even though, we always say that, Black people know white people better than white people know white people. And that is
Right.
what I wanted to write a book about.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I run my fingers through her hair as she smiles and says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one you're lusting